It is time for an all-new episode of Voices in the Game as we welcome you back, my friends, to another episode. And boy, oh boy, are we going to have an exciting one because I am so honored to introduce our guest for today's episode. If you've been a fan of Major League Baseball, and specifically a team called the Pittsburgh Pirates, over the past 30 plus years, you know who our guest is on today's episode. He just wrapped up his 32nd season as the play-by-play announcer for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He is Mr. Greg Brown. Greg, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. I'm so honored to have you on and also to interview a fellow
All right.
pioneer
Yes.
as well.
Fellow pioneer. Yes, let's go. Thank you, Colton. It's great to be on with you. Thanks for having me on as a guest.
Thank you so much, Greg. And how's the off season been going for you?
Well, it's great. Colton, you'll notice I'm in a really good mood because the Pirates have not lost a game in a month. So that's a standard line. It's been a month of it's really been enjoyable. It flies. I love the off season. It's a chance to wind down. It's a chance to get to things. I'm a pack rat. I a lot of stuff around our house that and I'm not necessarily Mr. Handyman, Mr. Fix It, but need to call people to fix things. My wife works full time, so she doesn't have the time. Our son is out of the house now and married himself, so it's a chance to catch up, go through some old files. Like I said, I'm a pack rat. Actually, today, Colton, I've got hundreds of old cassette tapes. I don't know if you know what that means. A cassette tape. You'd have to go online to look at a YouTube video to see what these things are. But actually, things were recorded on cassettes, and I've got a little cassette player. I wonder if I have one around here I could show you. But so I've got old like play-by-play games of football, baseball, interviews. Today I was listening to one side of a tape that had a bunch of interviews on it. I had Chris Benson, an old Pirates pitcher. Chad Hermanson was just making, it was a spring training. I think we were in El Paso getting ready to have a preseason game against the Brewers in El Paso before the season started. And I was interviewing Chris Benson, the former pitcher, Chad Hermanson, who was a number one pick of the Pirates and was a can't miss prospect, Al Martin. I didn't even remember this, but apparently I did a Thursday pregame show with Al Martin, the former Pirate outfielder, every Thursday night. It wasn't called Talking Baseball. It was called All Things Baseball with Al Martin. And Lloyd McClendon was the Pirates hitting coach before he was the Pirates manager. So I was listening to some of those and trying to organize them as best as possible. I've got old DVDs, old VHR videos. And when I have time, I kind of go through those and try again to catalog them and someday maybe use them for something. I don't know, maybe do a podcast of old Pirate interviews, Buffalo Bills football interviews. Just that's one thing that took up a couple hours today, for example.
I'll be subscribing to that right away, Greg.
All right, there's one. Like and subscribe, just like Colton did.
I remember, so Greg, I'm not sure if you remember this when we were, so for anybody who doesn't know, Greg and I have got to know each other over the past few years when I was a student at Point Park. And do you remember in 2022, we were down in Bradenton helping out with the River Regatta with our good friend, Mr. Mike Fetzko. And when the regatta was over, I think we were just out in the lobby at the hotel, and Mike still had his cassette tape when he was trying to get some auditions, when he was trying to go into his broadcasting career. And, I remember you listened to it, and then I listened to it. And, it really opened my eyes to how, it's just how things were, So I guess we could start off with that. How was that like for you to have to create a cassette tape? Because it's obviously a little different now, with digital media and having YouTube and all that for all of us to post our demos these days.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it because, when I was, I'm sure, trying to get the gig, get a job in broadcasting, I'm sure if I talked to, I don't know, an announcer who had been around a long, long time, he would say, like, man, you've got it so much easier now. than I did back in the 1970s or 80s trying to get a job. Um, and I would say that kids, in air quotes, have it probably easier than I did. Your people of my age did because now I think you can. I could be wrong. Colton, you don't have to correct me if I'm wrong, but you can pretty much post anything instantaneously, do it online. You don't have to have all these tapes all over the place. You don't have to try and when you rewind a cassette tape, it took forever as you watch, and then you'd play it, and then you say, I don't like that. Maybe you had to try and edit things way different now, where you literally had to edit. Heck, back in the day when I was at Point Park, I literally had to slice the tape and scotch tape it almost together. So that's how ancient it was back then. Whereas now, shoot, you got software that can do it again almost instantaneously. And but it may be quote easier physically to do things, but perhaps not as I hadn't thought about this, perhaps not as gratifying, satisfying as it was back then. Because going back to what I'm talking to you about today, when I was going back to rewind it and listen to it, and as you're rewinding it, you hear this. You actually hear it. You hear the rewinding of it. How cool is that? But back then, yeah, you had to put a tape together, get a microphone, and you didn't have iPads or buds or whatnot, and you had literally had a microphone, like kind of like I got back there, and record the game live. For me, I did it at Three River Stadium when I was trying to get a job. I was watching a Pirate game in an empty booth, and that still holds true today. That's never going to change that part of it. But then to take that tape and send it along and dub it, make copies of it, and put a package in a padded envelope and send it along with an actually typewritten resume. So that's the way it was done back then. And actually, I've suggested to kids nowadays who are trying to get jobs, I don't know if it would be weird or not. Rather than email, do something different. Put something that the program director, the manager, the general manager, whoever it might be, that's going to hire you, broadcasting director. I don't know. Would that stand out? For me, it would. But that's how we did it back then.
Yeah, and I would love to go back, to the beginning, Greg. So, do you remember at that point in time growing up when you decided you wanted to be a sportscaster? And was baseball always your first love and the wanting to be a broadcaster for a particular sport?
But actually, football and baseball. I think I was a football fanatic earlier than I was a baseball fan. I fell in love, Colton, with the Chicago Bears when I was a kid, and I was growing up in Phillies territory and Eagles territory and Flyers territory. All my buddies were a couple of Orioles fans, a couple Baltimore Colts fans back then before they moved and they became the Ravens now. But yeah, my buddies were. It was Phillies territory and Eagles territory, and I just happened to be. I'm one of 7 children. I've got 5 older brothers, 1 younger sister. And so sports was a huge part of our family. Everybody played sports. I was the young punk of the family. My brothers, they'll admit it now, all 5 of them, especially now, my oldest brother was kinder, but as you trickled down, getting closer in age, they would beat me up uh, more, the guys that were closer to me. But my oldest brother was pretty much out of the house, even my top 2 older brothers. But then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th brothers, they gave me a good pounding, man. They tried to toughen me up, and we were playing what we called knee football in the living room one day. Knee football, because with that many kids, not a lot of room. And the one area we were watching a Sunday afternoon, the TV was on. It was before the game started in the NFL. Back then, way before cable. It was just, you saw 2 or 3 games on a Sunday, and that was it. What was on nationally on the networks, NBC and CBS. ABC had Monday Night Football, but we played football on our knees on the carpet, and we would have little Nerf footballs, and we'd throw the ball kind of to ourselves, and imagine scrambling on your knees, trying to catch a ball as somebody defended you, and man, we loved that game. But as that was going on, my attention was drawn toward the television set where they were doing highlights of the Chicago Bears, and one particular player was the running back. His name was Gale Sayers, and I just was mesmerized. And I don't know if that happens to, it has to happen in this day and age, but NFL Films was based in Philadelphia, and they had an announcer, a narrator for 25, maybe 30 years named John Facenda,
The voice of God.
the voice of God. And uh, the folks at NFL Films matched music and that voice and that script like Noah. And I don't think, again, I keep going back to this because I don't follow it like I used to, but back then there was nothing, it was poetry. And I fell in love with Gale Sayers and the Chicago Bears at that moment. I wanted nothing more than to know everything about that football team, that player in particular. And as time went on, actually, and looking back on it now, they did a movie. Gale Sayers wrote a book called I Am Third. Um, God is first, my friends and family are second, and I am third was his line. And nobody to this day, nobody ran the football with such grace and power for my money than Gale Sayers. But along came a guy named Walter Payton, and Walter Payton out of Jackson State followed. And then I was in love with Walter Payton and continued to love the Chicago Bears. And finally, Walter Payton led them to the promised land. But so that was it. That was my love, was the Chicago Bears and football. And shortly thereafter, I learned about baseball and went to my first Major League Baseball game in Pittsburgh, and quickly uh, became attached, and my love grew of the Pirates as passionately as it did the Bears. I had I was a weirdo in high school. I was a nerd. I was a loner. There were I go back to some high school reunions. I still got some buddies back in Harrisburg, and we laugh about it now. But I was one of three or four of this clique that didn't do any of the other stuff. Didn't drink. Didn't do the drugs. Didn't do any of that stuff. And my loves were football and baseball, the Bears and the Pirates, and probably academically speaking, not my parents weren't happy about it, but academics took a back seat to the Bears and the Pirates.
And of course, your journey continued to Pittsburgh when you became a student at Point Park. So, what were some of those things that you learned during your time at Point Park, Greg, that really set you up for success? Because, of course, you would go on to work for the Pirates during your time there.
Colton, my first year out of high school, I was so unsure of what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't have a clue. I just didn't. I just, again, I can't stress enough that I felt like serious bookwork, schoolwork, took me away from my love and my passion. So every moment I was in a classroom or having to study for a test or an exam, that time was being taken away from the Pirates and the Bears. And that didn't make me happy. And I played intramural sports too. I mean, I just didn't sit up in a room watching football and baseball. I mean, I played all the sports. I loved them. Played high school baseball, intramural basketball and football. I loved it. I loved playing football and basketball with my buddies and baseball. Wiffle ball fanatic. I was a wiffle ball fanatic, a wiffle ball fan. And but after high school, I didn't know what to do, so I was taking courses at a Penn State campus in Harrisburg Area Community College, HAC. And that's when an opportunity came up to intern with the Pirates. And when I got the job as an intern for the Pirates, my bosses said, you got to keep studying. We're not going to let you just intern here without taking classes. And that's when I hooked on at Point Park. And I was on a 10-year program at Point Park. I eventually became a full-time employee of the Pirates while trying to fit in classes, which was very difficult and problematic. And I would kind of stop and start again, semester off here, semester on, and it was laborious to try and get the credit hours, and so on. And so people ask me about the importance of Point Park, and I don't want to dismiss it. The education is extremely important. People at Point Park were great. I forged great friendships there. Without one of my classmates, I'm not here now, and that's Bob Pompiani. It was Bob who he and I were on the same kind of career paths. He ended up interning at KDK TV and was doing weekend sports there as an intern, and then did some sports anchoring. And as that was going on, I was a full-time employee at the Pirates, and Bob called me one day and alerted me of an opportunity in Youngstown, the NBC TV affiliate there, WFMJ. He said, I know you want to get into this business, broadcasting, and I think you could do this. It's a weekend sports anchor job. And I got that job, and not for Bob. Bob, his brother Bruce, I was also a classmate of his, and a longtime friend as well. But one of the most important lessons, aside from the class work and what you learn with the hands-on experience, I was a wannabe broadcaster before Pomp called me, and I was still going to class and broadcast journalism. I was a wannabe broadcaster, dabbled in, did some public address announcing at Three River Stadium and so on, and was recording games in my tape recorder. But I still was never certain about this career path, what I was going to end up doing ultimately as a profession. And we had to hand in at Point Park an assignment toward the end of the year. We had to do a 5-minute newscast, sportscast. And this was not only cassette tape, this was reel-to-reel tape. So an old cubicle at Point Park, I'm sure does not exist to this day. Each student would go into this cubicle and record on this reel-to-reel. And we would also have to write our own 5-minute newscast, sportscast, record it, and hand that in. So we would hand the script and the tape in to our professor. And I've got to do some research because I've told this story before, and it really angers me that I cannot remember his name. It's not right. And for a long time, I actually saved this script that was handed back to each of us, because on the front page of the script of my sportscast newscast, in bright red lettering and a red pen, it said, Greg, A++, do not pass go. Go directly to a job in broadcasting. And the professor signed his name. And so I didn't do that. I didn't go directly to a job in broadcasting, and he didn't mean me to just up and leave. I didn't. I continued on. But what that did was it underscored, and it really solidified my belief that I could be. It confirmed for me that I could do it. Here's a professor teaching kids broadcast journalism, telling one of the students, you've got what it takes to be a professional. And that was as critical a lesson as I had. And, half of broadcasting is having confidence in it. If you're not confident in what you do and you don't enjoy it, you've got no chance. So that, again, and that set me on the path then to get into broadcasting.
Yeah, and of course, before you went to Youngstown, I think there's one particular night that I'm sure you've talked about over and over again, which is June 6, 1986 at Three River Stadium. So, for anybody who doesn't know the story, can you take us through what transpired that night with another Pittsburgh broadcasting legend?
Okay, well, I was going to say that I know he knows the date because he comes to me about every year, especially when he was still working uh, as a sports anchor. He wanted to do, I think, after like the 20-year anniversary or 25-year anniversary, he wanted to do a show about it because he ended up getting obviously a job, and so did a third gentleman. Oh my gosh, I'll find that out. I have to look this up. But I think he's still the voice for Virginia or Virginia Tech football, and uh, uh, Mr. Roth, I believe. And yeah, so it was 1986. I was working for the Pirate front office, and Lanny Fratteri and Jim Rooker were the broadcasters on the radio side for many years. Rook had a daughter who was, I believe, graduating from college, maybe getting married. He was going to have to leave and miss a game. And Lanny, who is, one of the brilliant broadcasters of all time, not he's, in my opinion, a Hall of Famer, and just so knowledgeable and so smart. He's got a marketing mind too. He went to the people at KDK and the Pirates and said, "Listen, rather than me doing the game by myself or bringing in somebody from the PR department, why don't we open this up and make it a contest? Let's open this up to any amateur who wants to be an announcer, and we'll pick three winners, and each winner will have a chance to be uh, kind of my co-announcer, do some play-by-play, do some color for 3 innings each." They called it a broadcaster for a night contest. And again, this was you mentioned 1986. I'm working in the front office I think I did a number of jobs at the Pirates. I think I was the radio TV coordinator for the Pirates at the time. So I was a liaison between our flagship station, KDK, and the 50 station radio network. And a gentleman, Colton, by the name of Harry O'Toole, he was the uh, executive producer of Pirates baseball on KDK radio. He had other jobs at KDK. He'd been there for a long, long time. He passed away a few years ago, local legend. He was in local plays. He was a local actor. He did some national film work. He worked in one movie with Bruce Willis, but he was very animated, uh, flamboyant, hilarious. One of the funniest people. I mean, just an absolute treat. One of my really good friends over the years, but he was just absolutely, he was a caricature of himself and a true character in Pittsburgh. And at Three River Stadium one night, he would often come to games and sit behind home plate at Three River Stadium. And I saw him down there, so I was doing some work up in the uh, booth with the organist Vince Lashide. I was kind of the DJ between innings, helped coordinate the entertainment. And so as the game was going on, I ran downstairs and wanted to talk to Harry because I've certainly heard of the contest. Saw him in the stands and halfway through the ball game, and I said, Harry, by the way, like I said, he was an actor all the time. He would flail his arms off in time, and he'd be emphasize words and say, "Greg, what do you want?" And I said, "Harry," he goes, "Can't you see I'm watching the game?" I said, "Yeah, I know you're watching the game, Harry, but I just wanted to let you know this broadcaster for a night thing. I want to enter the contest." "Oh, you're not allowed." I said, "What do you mean? Employees of the Pirates and KDK are not allowed." I said, "Yeah, but can I?" He goes, "If you do, you better not use your name." So I took that to heart and I went ahead and I took one of those cassette tapes that I've been, occasionally doing during games and mailed it in to KDKA. How much time do you have for this a long story? You got time for this?
Oh, of course, Greg. We got all the time in the world, my friend.
So I mail it in to KDK and thought nothing of it. Now, Colton, at the time, I was my title. I think my title might have been assistant director of promotions, I believe, actually, because one of my cohorts who also was an assistant director of promotions. And what we would do, we would sell promotional days. We would activate the game day. We'd order in the whatever the giveaway might be, t-shirts. We'd get them in from whatever country and pay the supplier. And then we'd make sure when the truck came in, we'd meet the truck and we'd have the grounds crew help us put them in storage. And then we'd help hand them out. It was cumbersome, but enjoyable. But one of my dearest friends, her name is now it's Kathy Little, but she's a Pittsburgher, Kathy Saba. And she and I can laugh about this now, but at the time she didn't think it was very funny. But uh, so I didn't tell anybody about this, that I'd mailed this in because you had to use an alias. You couldn't use your name. He told me I can't use I better not use, so I didn't. I sent the tape in. And a few weeks later, got a phone call from Harry. And he said, Greg, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm sitting here. Actually, we're in a meeting. Kathy and I are talking about a giveaway day in a couple weeks. Get over here right away. So what? Get over here right away. We need your help. What? Okay. I said, Kathy, let's go. Now, back then, Colton KDK was located at Gateway Center, where KDK TV currently is located, which is right across the river from PNC Park and then Three River Stadium. So heck, you could get there in a car in 2 minutes flat. So we get there and walk into Harry's little office, and he didn't have a very big office, but he got papers everywhere and boxes of stuff. And what do you need? See that box over there? Yeah. Take that box and go into one of those recording studios and listen to those tapes. What are they? Broadcaster for night tapes. There must be 100 of them. I don't have time to listen to all of them. So take those tapes. So Kathy and I go into a cubicle, and these cassette tapes, we'd put a cassette tape in and we'd listen. And he said, whatever was no good, just pitch or put it in an empty box. If the good ones, though, anything that's good, save and give them to me. So we would put the tapes in. Now, understand, I did not hear my tape. Thank God.
I was about to say, I was wondering if your tape was in there.
Thank God. No. But I was very objective about it. I mean, what am I going to do? I listened to a tape. You could tell. You can tell. You even now, you know if guys are any good. And so you'd listen to a tape, and she and I would both agree or disagree. Any good? Yeah, decent. Let's keep it. Right away. Oh my gosh, some people just did this jokes. Like, what is this? No. So came back and gave them the tapes we thought were decent. Again, I've not said a word to Kathy, and go back to work. We were all there for about an hour or so. A few days later, phone call again. Once again, it's Harry. Greg, you and Kathy get over here right away. I said, what this time? Constantine Grab wants you over here. Now, Constantine Grab was the general manager, vice president of KDK Radio in Pittsburgh. And he had a big office, big name, big voice, booming voice, big human, big personality. Probably everything you could possibly envision with that great name, Constantine Grab. Yeah, he was deep voice and big man and very serious and always dressed to the nines. And understandably, he took his position as vice president and general manager of KDK and Westinghouse very seriously. Well, we find ourselves in his office, and there are about, 7 chairs lined up in the back of his office. He is at his office like this with a big desk, big, huge booming speakers, and a big stereo. And I'm seated there now with Kathy, my friend, Harry O'Toole. Kathy Muldowney was in charge of traffic, I believe. Kathy Proya, I believe, was also there. And Randy Flick, an engineer. I believe that was it. And I knew all these people, by the way, KDK. They're all friends of mine. All these people, great people. Sometimes run into them once in a while. And I think I know what's going on here, but I didn't say anything. And Constantine Grab says, thank you all for being here. Uh, the Broadcaster for a Night contest has been going on for a couple of weeks now. We've gotten hundreds of tapes from across the country. And Harry O'Toole, Constantine didn't know that I was involved or Catherine. Harry O'Toole has done such great work here, whittling down what he believes to be the 10 best. And I have them here now, the 10 best possibilities. But we need only 3. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this the democratic way. I'm going to insert this cassette tape, 10 of them, each one. We're going to give each one an ample opportunity to be heard. And I'm going to go around the room and we're going to vote on the final 3 winners. So he starts putting the tape in, click, he starts, here's the pitch, whatever it would be. I don't know who these voices, I'd never heard before, but he lets it go for a little while and he stops the tape and he said, well, I think that was pretty good. I would vote for this person. Kathy, Randy, Mary, Greg, and by the time they got to me, I think I was second to last. I think Kathy was closest to the door, I believe. I was second to last, but everybody else was voting. By the time they got to me, everybody else had said yes. So yeah, good. Went through this process, 3 or 4 tapes, and again listening to a few, maybe not a whole inning, maybe a half an inning, and then he puts a tape in and he goes and starts the tape, and within 2 pitches, like the ball fouled away, a ground ball short onto first, he stops the tape and he goes, well, obviously this is a winner. Does anybody disagree? Harry, up. Well, that was my tape. I mean, right away, as soon as obviously I recognized, like, oh my, as soon as he hit the tape, I go. But again, within seconds, he stops the tape. He goes, is there any doubt he's a winner? And he goes, and so I kind of sheepishly, turned my head and voted yes, of course. I mean, everybody else agrees.
Did anyone know who you were, Greg, at that time?
Well, no, I was not an announcer then, I was in the front office.
It's just like when you had the voice.
Oh, no, nobody
knew that was you.
No. It was instant. Now, maybe if they'd let the tape go on, they'd listen to it for a while, probably, I would think. So anyway, he said, well, we've got our 3. Thank you very much, Greg and Kathy. Thank you for coming over here from the Pirates. We appreciate your help. We'll announce these winners. We'll let the Post-Gazette know, and next Friday, these 3 will do the 3 innings with Lanny. So as we're walking out of the building, Colton, Kathy and I are walking out of the building, and at those days, KDK, there are glass doors at the lobby area. We walk out the glass door, and then you have to take a right by the Gateway Plaza there, and then you take a right, and we would walk toward Fort Duquesne Boulevard, and then take a right, and there's a parking garage there. I don't even think we might have. Sometimes we would double park and put the flashers on off the sidewalk. We might have done, but the point is we're walking out of the building, and we're walking down the street now, Kathy and I. I said, Kathy, I have a confession to make. She goes, what? I said, that last announcer that Constantine grabbed and everybody said is an automatic winner? She goes, yeah. I said, you agree? He's like, well, she goes, oh my, he's unbelievable. I said, Kathy, that's me. She goes, what? I said, that's my tape. She stopped. Her jaw drops. She looks at me. We stopped. She goes, what? I said, she goes, are you out of your mind? Do you know how much trouble we're in? I can't believe. She like hits me. She said, I said, what? She goes, we're in so much trouble now. Why didn't you tell me? Blah, 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 blah. I can't believe you did this to me. I said, Kathy, I told her, I said, Harry told me I could do it as long as I didn't use my name. Oh, she's furious. So she goes, well, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm not involved in this. I said, well, I'm going to win. I mean, I'm in. I'm going to see if I can do it. So the next day in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and I have a copy of it somewhere, and this is what you're leading to. It said the 3 winners for Broadcaster for a Night are Albie Oxenreiter of wherever he was from, Fox Chapel. I know this one, Roth, Sam Roth, maybe, of Green Tree. And so, Colton, do you know the movie Caddyshack?
It's one of my dad's favorite movies.
Have you ever seen it?
I have a confession
Probably
to make
not.
too, Greg. I have never seen it. It's
Okay,
funny.
that's all right.
I love Chevy
Well,
Chase and Bill Murray and all them, but that's just a movie I've never gone around to see yet.
okay. Well, you know that two of the stars are Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. And for those who haven't seen it, Chevy Chase is the really good golfer. He doesn't like the fact that this Bushwood Country Club is all uppity. Um, he goes out and practices one night in the dark, and his golf ball winds up crashing into the assistant groundskeeper's shack, where Bill Murray is this character. He is the assistant greenskeeper, and he's definitely got a couple screws loose. And there's some great quotes from him in the movie. I mean, he and Chevy Chase are the stars, but he's just this real goofy assistant greenskeeper um, that's really wacky. But his name in the movie, his character in the movie, is Carl Spackler. Carl Spackler, Carl Spackler, Spackler. So again, the Post Gazette does a pirate story, and at the end, it does a paragraph of little Bucko notes, Bucko treasure nuggets. Says something like, Tony Pena is now 21st last 25, blah, 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 blah. And the final line is broadcaster for a night contest winners who will do the game with Lanny for Terry this Friday are Albie Oxenrider of Fox Chapel.
Bill Roth.
What is it? Bill Roth. Thanks
I
for
just
looking that
looked
up,
it
man.
Greg. Yeah,
Thank
Bill
you.
Roth.
And I apologize to Bill because my gosh, Albie had a reunion with Bill, and Bill's a great guy. So yeah, Bill Roth. Uh, and the third winner, Carl Spackler. And I think I was living in, I don't know where I was, Mount Lebanon at the time, renting an apartment. And so I get on the phone to Harry O'Toole that morning. And he always answers the phone. This is Harry O'Toole. I said, good morning, Harry. How you doing? What do you want? And I said, are you reading the Post Gazette by chance? No, I'm working. I said, grab a copy. I said, yeah, I've got one here on my desk. Get the sports section out. All right. Go to page D3. Okay. You see Bucko treasure notes? Yeah. Read that last paragraph. Albie Oxenrider of Fox Chapel, Bill Ross of Green Tree, and Carl Spackler of Mount Lebanon are the winners of Broadcaster for a Night. So what? I know the winner. I said, Harry, you're talking to Carl Spackler. He said, you're in big trouble. I said, big trouble? What do you mean big trouble? You're not allowed to be in it. You're in big trouble. I said, Harry, you told me a month ago that I could do it as long as I didn't use my name. I used an alias. And that's what I did. He said, I didn't think you'd win. So now one thing leads to another. We get a phone call from the Pirates. I think we're on I don't know whether St. Louis, wherever they were, get on a conference call with Lanny Fratteri and Jim Rooker, Kathy and I, and they were absolutely outraged, upset with us. Kathy kept saying, I didn't have anything to do with it. But Jim Rooker and Lanny were both saying, like, you really put us in a terrible position. The rules, the contest rules. We did this on good faith. I can't believe you would do this to. And I still felt like I didn't do anything wrong. In my mind, I didn't do anything wrong. I had to go to my boss, the vice president of marketing, Jack Schramm, told him about it. He kind of got a chuckle out of it because you cannot, you're not going to be one of those announcers. You can't win. It's obvious, implicit in the rules that you cannot be involved in these contests. We read them on every night, anytime there's a contest. So he said, and you're going to have to call Constantine Grab and apologize. So I got on the phone to Constantine Grab, and he was none too pleased. I said, hello, we called him Con Grab. Con, I know you've heard. Um, I just want to apologize. Well, Greg, you put us, I don't know how I feel about this. You put KDK and Westinghouse Broadcasting in a terrible predicament, in a situation that is just I've never heard anything like this. I can't believe it. And I said, well, I apologize. And obviously, I'm not going to do it. But that was my one big break. I was really disappointed that I didn't get my opportunity there because I thought, this would be my chance. And it was swept away by these stupid contest rules. But I got my name in the paper. At least Carl Spackler did.
Yeah. Oh my good. Do you know who wound up winning the contest, Greg, and for getting the chance to do the game with Lanny?
Uh, well, it was Albie, Bill, and I don't know. Albie might know the guy that came. I think they had to put in the next day in the paper that Carl Spackler is unable to because of an illness in the family or something. I've had to tell him. Yeah, I don't recall who then they brought in as the third guy. I forget.
Oh, okay. My goodness, great. That's a phenomenal story. And then getting your chance, eventually, with what happened at Three River Stadium with Mike Lang, so how did that opportunity come about for you to watch Lang do the broadcast when he was with the Pirates, and then you getting that chance, seems out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's funny you said that broadcaster for a night thing. I think you said was 87 or 86.
It was 86. Yeah, because I thought that it was the night when you were at Three Rivers, when you were watching the game when you were watching Mike do the broadcast, and then Mike went in the break and just said Greg Brown's going to be joining us, and then he
Oh,
left.
maybe I'm
It was a
sorry.
doubleheader.
Oh gosh, I think I got it all mixed up now because
Well,
maybe
that's a
then.
phenomenal story, Greg.
You've never talked to Albie about that?
No, I've no. Geez, now we're gonna have to get Albie on the try to. We're gonna have to get Albie on the
Oh,
show.
Albie loves the story. Well, Albie, because Albie then parlayed that into he did some play-by-play for I think colleges and stuff, and so he ended up then being a longtime sports anchor on Channel 11 and then 4, I believe. But so I thought of around that time. So maybe it was 80. Oh boy, I don't know. Maybe it was 83 then that happened. But 86, okay, it was 86 where I was doing pre and post game interviews on KBL, the cable uh, fledgling cable outlet for Pirates baseball. They did, I don't know, 40 or 50 games. It was way before, AT&T and T and Fox Sports Net. And uh, this was kind of almost a pay-per-view type deal. Just the early stages of cable for the Pirates. And Mike Lang and Steve Blass were the announcers. And I got that job. Kind of a similar thing happened to the broadcaster for a night. So I guess I could segue into it because I was, I definitely was the broadcast coordinator then. Um, I was working with the affiliate stations at that time, and I was working under a gentleman by the name of Joe Gallagher, who was the director of publicity, and people wore different hats, and so I helped Joe in publicity and so on, and PR along with being the radio TV coordinator. And the president of the team at the time was Mac Prine. Back then, the Pirates were really owned by a consortium of businesses in Pittsburgh. The Galbraith family sold the team in the mid 80s to this until they could get a true owner. Kevin McClatchy would come along later. But until that time, holding down the fort was this group. And the president was a guy by the name of Mac Prine. It was much like Constantine Grab. Mac Prine was intimidating. He was the president of Ryan Homes, and they brought him in. One of the businesses that owned the Pirates, again, about 10 U.S. Steel, Ryan Homes, Westinghouse, a bunch of teams owned the Pirates then to keep them in Pittsburgh. And they assigned Mac Prine as the president. And Mac was he had to be 6'6" and balding, thin, good shape. He was a college basketball referee also. He had wire rim glasses, and man, he was he was just tough. He was no nonsense with Mac. Um, if you got called into his office, boy, you were in some kind of trouble. And so anyway, Mac, uh, asked me to put together a videotape, an inning of Pirate play-by-play of because I was also at the time doing entertainment up in the scoreboard room when we got our video scoreboard in, and we had VHS tapes, and I'd run highlights of it. Was again very primitive, but we had a VHS, three VHS machines, VCR machines, and put highlights together. But I would record all the Pirate games, and so I could edit highlights together. And Mac said, "I want you to put an inning of play-by-play together of a Pirate game, but I want you to make it so that there's some action. I want you to make it so there's maybe a little bit of a delay, maybe there's a pitching change, um, the best inning you can do, because I want to bring in some people to do some play-by-play. We're going to hire a new play-by-play and color analyst for these games. We're not going to have Lanny and Rook, whoever was doing it at the time. Yeah. KDK TV was doing some over-the-air games, but this was brand new. This is cable. So we need to hire a couple of announcers." So I put this tape together, and then he had me kind of coordinate it. We would bring in some local talent, and I had a room off. Maybe I went into the scoreboard room. I can't forget exactly where, but I got a microphone, and I showed the inning, and they would have to. It was very tough because no crowd, it wasn't live, and they would have to do play-by-play based on this one inning video on a monitor. And so we would take these tapes now, and Mac Prine and Joe Gallagher were in charge of hiring the play-by-play and color analyst based on this tape and based on the recording, and I would bring it in. Well, lo and behold, sure as heck, I did my own tape. So we listened to everyone, including me, and then we sat around this big conference room, and we went over the resumes and our notes. And Mac and Joe and I would say, "Okay, who?" And I was a big Mike Lang fan, and I said, so he was my number one choice anyway. Mike and Steve Blass, I knew Steve. He was doing some color on the radio, and so they were my top choices. And as it came down to it, they both agreed that it was Mike Lang and Steve Blass. They would be the guys that would call these games. But Mac said, "Now wait a minute. What about Greg Brown? You know, maybe he could do some play-by-play. Shouldn't he have a role?" Because we listened to his tape. He said, "Greg, you can't vote, of course, but Joe, now I'm seated here right next to my boss, Joe Gallagher, and Mac Prine is across from the two of us. And he just asked Joe Gallagher what he thought of me as a play-by-play guy or an on-air talent. Joe, what do you think?" Joe goes, "No, I don't think so." You imagine my dream? This guy, my boss, says no.
Right
I
in
want to
front
reach
of you.
across, right in front of him. I want to reach across and grab him and choke him. And I couldn't believe it. Mac says, "I disagree. I think Greg has a role. We'll figure something out." And as it turns out, they make me do the pre and post game. So I traveled, I don't know how many cities during the course of a season with Steve Blass and Mike Lang. It was unbelievable. What a incredible gift. What a blessing. I don't know why that it's crazy. So during the season, I get to know Mike and Steve, of course, and I'm just doing pre and post game interviews. Basically, I'm like the early Hannah Mears, Robbie and Smikowski, but didn't do, maybe once or twice do something in game when there was time. Basically, just pre and post game interviews, and so I was really good at it because during the games, I would stand in the back of the booth. Mike and Steve were up front, and I would watch them and make sure that everything was hunky dory for them. If I saw that their Coke was down to a quarter, I'd run down to the press room and bring up a brand new Coke with ice in it. If I saw that they might be struggling with a call from the press box, the official score, maybe the speaker was down too low, they couldn't hear it. I could see Mike wondering what he might turn around and go. I'd run down to the press box and check with the official score and what was, and write down, it was error first base and just slip Mike the note. I was seen and I was available, but I wasn't overbearing, which is so critical in, I think, anything, but especially when you're trying to get jobs like this. You've got to be, it's such a balance. You can't be too timid, but you can't be overbearing because that's a turnoff. So uh, one day Mike says to me, kid, he called me kid, kid, we got a doubleheader coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm not doing 18 innings, so you better be ready. And I don't know exactly what he meant by that, but I knew all the teams, I knew the stats. I mean, I was always ready, whatever that meant. And I'm standing in the back of the booth one day at what day did you say it was? Did you have a
June
date?
6, 1986 at Three Rivers Stadium.
Okay, June 6, 1986, standing in the back of the booth. And I felt like it might have been about the fifth inning. And I think I hear Mike say, now, of course, their back is to me. They're projecting out toward the field, and I'm standing behind them. And so you don't necessarily hear everything they say. I don't have a headset on. I'm not hearing the telecast. But I thought Mike said, well, the Pirates lead the Mets 5-2, and when we come back, Greg Brown will take you through the sixth and seventh innings. I thought that's what I heard. And I see him stand up, and he takes his headset off, and he starts walking back toward the back of the booth toward the exit, and where I'm standing near the doorway. And he pats me on the back, and he says, go get him, kid. And he walks out. Now there's an empty chair. Steve Blass seated there with the headset on the counter. And he turns back to me and he goes, get over here. He's like, sit down. I go over, sit down, put my headset on. And now I'm watching the Pittsburgh Pirates, I believe the New York Mets. And Steve says, when we come back from, he goes, okay, now taking us through the next couple innings, Greg Brown. And for the next two innings, I'm doing Major League Baseball play-by-play. I've got actually a tape of Major League Baseball play-by-play out of nowhere. Like, where did this happen? How did this happen? Now, Mike didn't get permission from anyone. He did it on his own. He got his hand slapped. He was told not to do it again. In fact, the guy who was the program director for KBL at the time was a wannabe announcer himself. He was terrible. He was not an on-air guy. Good guy, but terrible. But he was very jealous and immediately went to the Pirates and had me taken off that. That was never going to happen again. But I got those two innings, and I could parlay that into other things.
And when you did leave the Pirates the first time around, Greg, did you feel like you were betting on yourself when you left the Pirates? The go take that position you mentioned earlier in Youngstown and then eventually off to Buffalo?
I don't know. I thought I was betting on myself, but I was I was in love with the business. In fact, I did that summer of weekend sports anchoring on WFMJ TV, and I was getting pretty good at it to the point where the sports director, sometime in, I don't know what this would have been, probably January of 1988. Would that be 88 or 89? 89, January of 89. January of 1989, the news director called me in Youngstown, called me into his office, and he said, we want to make you our full-time weeknight sports anchor and sports director. I have to admit, I'll tell you when I'm not good, but I was pretty good. I was it was a good start. And I think I could have, I wasn't thinking about going big, but that was a big offer to be a full-time weekend sports anchor. Full-time weeknight, 6 and 11 sports anchor. And the news anchor on weekends, Lori Schultz, I believe, was also being offered something. She and I were the team for that 1 year. And so it was pretty good. But right at that time, I was offered this job up in Buffalo to be the number 2 radio play-by-play guy, color/color analyst, and to work at the radio station while also helping the baseball team, the minor league baseball team in Buffalo, put together a radio network. I'd worked with Pittsburgh, the Pirates, the radio network affiliate, as radio TV coordinator on a 50 station radio network. I was the liaison between the flagship KDK and all of our affiliates. And so they felt in Buffalo, having talked to people at the Pirates, knowing the Pirates knew me, the Pirates said, I think Greg could help you. He could do some play-by-play. He wants to be an on-air guy anyway, but he could also put a little network together for you, which we did. We put like a 5-station network together. And I went up there, and I didn't know where Buffalo was on the map. I swear to God, I didn't know where it was. I could have been near New York City. And in fact, when I went to do my first interview, I said, do I have to fly there? I guess I got to get a flight. And I looked on the map. Oh my gosh, I could drive there. It's only 4 hours. So I went up there and did the interview. And the one thing I did do, I went out there without thinking. I didn't think about this. I do now, but most people go from the minors to the majors. I did the exact opposite. I had a job in the big leagues and going to the minor leagues. And I felt like over the years that I was good enough, having done those broadcaster for a night, though I didn't get the job, but that one inning of play-by-play. I did public address announcing for a couple of years at Three River Stadium. I did I did a weekend show called This Week in Pirates Baseball that was very well produced. I voiced over highlight films. I produced, I directed highlight films. I was the director of our scoreboard crew. I edited. I did not only voiceover work, I did promos. I mean, I did it all, just about everything except actual play-by-play for the Pirates on a full-time basis. But I worked stats with Lanny. I really felt like, geez, oh man, Greg Brown's the obvious choice here if you're going to make a change. My boss, the director of broadcasting at the time, who had recommended me to the people in Buffalo, said to me, hey, don't tell anybody this, but next year, after the season, we're going to make a change at the play-by-play job. So I knew they were going to move from this one gentleman. And he basically said, you go up there and you do a job, you have a chance. You could apply for this gig. So I go up there. I guess my thought was, I'll go up there, just put a year in. I'm ready. I'm ready now, but if that's what I got to do, okay. Well, I went up there and I did a year and I applied and I didn't get the job. In fact, I also applied when Ernie Harwell got fired by Bo Schembechler. A little crazy, but Bo Schembechler, the iconic coach for Michigan Wolverines football, became the president of the Detroit Tigers for a short time, believe it or not. And he made the foolish move of firing legendary Hall of Fame announcer Ernie Harwell. He thought they needed a new voice. He got crucified for it. But for a year, Ernie was out of the booth. And I applied for that job, that vacated job. Thank God I didn't get that gig, because that's a no-win situation. So anyhow, I ended up going up there to Buffalo, and after getting the return down for a year, did 4 more years, and then got the job. But I did go there, Colton, to kind of your question. I went out there without a safety net. There was never a guarantee that I was going to come back to Pittsburgh, as evidenced by the fact that I didn't get the job the first time. No guarantees whatsoever. So that part of it was, I don't know, scary, but maybe you could say I did bet on myself there.
And what were your favorite memories during your time in Buffalo, Greg? Of course, right out of the gate, just, you would talk about being at the right place at the right time with the Super Bowl runs for the Bills with Jim Kelly, and also having the chance to call basketball as well for the University of Buffalo.
Well, I spoke in funny with earlier today. I did a Zoom class with some kids up at UB, University of Buffalo, and they had me and Paul Peck, who does University of Buffalo play-by-play, and Pete Weber is the original voice of the Nashville Predators hockey team. He does the radio for them. But Pete was the #1 play-by-play guy, and he was the sports director of the radio station. So I worked for the station, I worked for Pete, but I was so fortunate, I said it again to the students today, that I was so fortunate to work with and for Pete because he just he just so unselfishly he just threw me into the deep end of the pool and he let me do everything. I mean, yeah, I did the middle innings of play by play while doing color the other innings on the radio with Pete, but we also had the rights to the UB basketball. Uh, Eventually got the rights to the Sabres. Eventually got the rights to the Bills. But I mean, we were putting. I did sports talk. I did morning drive, afternoon drive. I did UB basketball. I did a little UB hockey. Um, I did eventually pre and post between periods work with the Sabres. Um, before we got the rights to the Bills, we put this back then. It was unheard of, Colton. We didn't have the rights to the Bills, but yet, in Pete's genius was to put together a 3-hour pregame leading up to kickoff, countdown to kickoff. Didn't have the rights to the team, but we did a 3-hour show. We did it live from Rich Stadium at our mobile unit. So we weren't allowed in the stadium, but we did it from outside our mobile unit. And we put together, I mean, it was just ingenious. We had a bunch of people at the station working on it. We did interviews, of course. We did phone calls. We did tape stuff during the week. We also owned the rights to the Marv Levy show, the head coach, and the Bill Polian show, the general manager. So we would take snippets. And that's the other thing Pete had me do, which led me to doing the Bills games because I was hosting the general manager show and the head coach from Rich Stadium. And eventually, when we got the rights to the Bills, they were looking for a new color analyst, and thanks to Bill Polian and Marv Levy, they had gone to our radio station owners and said, the guy you need to hire to be your color analyst is Greg Brown. And it blew me out of the water. So, yeah, I was at it was the right time, the right place, and incredibly fortunate.
Yeah, how did it feel for you out of the gate to have that chance with the Bills to broadcast all of those Super Bowls? And also, how was that right for you having the transition to a broadcaster as a fan, knowing that you work for the Bills now, but you grew up a Bears fan?
Yeah, that part wasn't tough. That's and in fact, that part's rather easy. Whenever you go to broadcast a team, your team broadcast or any other allegiance for me is gone because now you get to know these people, on a personal level, and you become sometimes friends with them. Certainly, people within the organization, if not the player. I mean, to this day, Marv Levy turned 100 years old last week. He's a Hall of Fame coach, and I emailed him last week, this summer, and emailed him, and still in contact with him. I consider him a friend. So anyway, so yeah, you root for almost immediately because you pour everything into it. You're there every day. I was there every day as the beat reporter, and starting in training camp in Fredonia, New York, when the Bills reported. I was there every single day, watching the practices, reporting from there. I got the nickname Touchdown Greg Brown. I was on the air constantly on the other shows. Morning Drive. They'd have every Monday morning. They'd have me on for 3 hours taking calls because I lived Bills football. I broke a lot of the big stories. I knew the coaches, and so yeah, you live it, and so that part wasn't difficult. Was difficult was going from being a baseball guy to a football guy. When the program director Chuck Finney called me into his office one day, again, was totally unaware, no clue. I knew that we were going to have to hire a new color analyst for the Bills, but I had no idea that I was even on the radar. But I sit down and they close the door. He goes, "Hey, we've got a heck of an opportunity for you. We want to announce you as our new Buffalo Bills color analyst. Starting, game one, it was the World Bowl in Europe in London, England was the first, I think, the Eagles and the Bills preseason." And he says, "What do you think?" I said, "What do I think?" I said, "It's a slap in the face." He goes, "What?" I said, "I came here to do baseball, and you're asking me to be a football analyst?" I said, I'm going to have time to think about this. He goes, well, geez, okay. Give it till tomorrow and think about it. And I leave and I'm furious. I'm fuming. One of my first phone calls was to Mike Lang and my father. I didn't know what to do because I thought now all of a sudden I'm being taken out of the baseball gig and going into football. I want to be a Major League Baseball announcer. Well, Mike Lang said, you're out of your mind. You've got to do it. You don't turn down a job like that. So I went back to them the next day and I said, okay, I'll take it. And I think what's funny about it is I ended up Colton. I think they ended up paying me a little more money, thinking that maybe that was what I was trying to do. And I had no intention. I didn't care about the money, but I got more money out of it. But what it did do, and thank God I took it because going back to the story about the Pirates, everybody in the front office knew me. Landy Terry, I'm sure, recommended me. But I think, after that first year, I told you that I applied and I didn't get the job. I think I was good enough then, but I don't think the Pirates were convinced. 4 years later, now having gone to four straight Super Bowls, I think they said, boy, this is an NFL announcer. I think he's a big league announcer. So I really do think that was the pivotal point that turned the tide. I don't know. Maybe I'd have gotten the job anyway without the Bills, but I just think that they looked at me kind of in a whole new light.
And how did that opportunity come for you, Greg? The Pittsburgh, the join Lanny as one of the play-by-play announcers in 1994.
Yeah, they brought a new guy in, and whatever year that would have been now, 1990. They brought a new guy in who did 4 years there, and I guess they weren't happy. And I applied again. And I know that it was not just Lanny, but there were some like women secretaries in the front office that I had, gotten to know from a kid. I was literally a kid. They watched me grow. They helped me grow. Those people in the front office. And that was the toughest part about leaving Pittsburgh. That was cutting the umbilical cord. That was my home growing up. Pittsburgh was my Oz. I tell people when I came from little town of Mechanicsburg to Pittsburgh, the big city, and the way the city lit up, I loved everything about it. And even when I was in Buffalo, I would make occasional drives down to Pittsburgh to visit friends. It tugged at my heart. And so I'm back and, prayed that this would finally be it, my opportunity, because who knows when this would come up again. Lucky enough that it came up 4 years later. I will never forget, Colton. I was in Rich Stadium where the Bills played. And like I said, I reported there every day. And this was leading up to one of the playoff games. Might have been the Super Bowl. There was a 2 week window, I believe, after our last playoff game there. But it was, sometime in January of 1994. And I was in the area where it was a workroom, they called it, where the press, and I would hang out there every day, and I'd be listening to tape, I'd be listening to my interviews, I'd be preparing to go interview Marv Levy or someone else. I lived there at Rich Stadium, and for whatever reason, I happened to be there at this particular time. No other members of the media were there. I got there earlier, whatnot. Scott Birchtold was the director of publicity for the Buffalo Bills, and he came in with no cell phones yet, no cell phones, but he came in with the long cord of the landline, and he brought this phone and he put it on this countertop, and he said, "Hey, you're getting a phone call here in a few minutes." So, okay, that was weird. So answer it. Phone rings. Hello, Greg? Yeah, well, actually, another story, but some of the people in Buffalo called me Stains, Stains, because I'm always flailing my arms around. And without fail, almost every single, even to this day, I'll smack over a cup of coffee or water and spill it everywhere. I went on a blind date once, and word got around that somebody set me up with this blind date, and she was very nice. She was all dressed up and wore this high countertop, and I ordered a drink. I don't think it was wine, but whatever it was. I mean, we're not a minute into our fight. I'd never met her in the first minute of conversation. Sure as shooting, I hit this glass. It spills all over her. And so, yeah, my nickname was Stain. So on the other end, was the owner of the radio station, Mindy Rich. Bob and Mindy Rich were not only owners of the radio station, but the Rich Products is a multi-billion-dollar industry based in Buffalo, New York. They're in the food industry, and that in fact, Rich Stadium, they had owned the rights to what they called Rich Stadium for many years up in Buffalo. I don't know what it's called now. Maybe is it Highmark?
Yeah, it's called Highmark Stadium now.
Okay, so back then it was Rich Stadium, and anyway, so Mindy Rich was she was the boss at the radio station, and hello, Staines? Yeah, it's Mindy. I know it was Sue. She said Staines. She goes, well, I just got off the phone with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and my heart like leaps. And she said, um, I selfishly didn't want to do this, but I know where your heart is and where your dreams are, and I've given them permission to talk to you because they had to call and ask for permission, and they called Mindy, and I will never forget that phone call. Of course, as long as I live, I'll never forget the elation. But it was weird too because I still had a job to do at preparing for the Super Bowl. Um, but to think there's a song that Jennifer, oh, what's her name? The country music singer does with dang it, my memory. Anyhow, about you can't go home. Who says you can't go home? Um, and every time I hear that song, I think about me, and because it's basically saying, "Who says you can't go home?" As a matter of fact, you can go home anyway. So that's that I knew I was going back home, and it was a great, great feeling.
Yeah, then fast forward now the 2025, Greg, with everything that you have been through, with the Pirates and
Let me interrupt you.
what's
Bon Jovi, and
Bon
Jennifer
Jovi.
Nettles. Sorry,
Oh, okay. Oh
that
no,
would
oh, no,
that would
oh,
have
no,
killed
no
me.
worries, Greg. And then so you are obviously known, and Greg, someone who's a play-by-play announcer myself, you have been one of the key inspirations for how I call games because I love to bring enthusiasm. I love to bring excitement to all my broadcasts because we're so lucky to get to do what we do for a living. So how are you able to find that style of being enthusiastic and excited during a broadcast when the Pirates do something well?
Well, I will say, Colton, with all due respect, I also do it when, and people don't realize this, which is fine, but I do it when great plays are made and great players play, regardless of what uniform they're wearing. I get excited about that, and some people don't like that. Some people, why does he get so excited about what the other team did? Well, it's a great play. It's sometimes disappointing, but I respect and appreciate great players. So, but in terms of excitement, it's because you already said it and you already do it yourself because you love the art of broadcasting. You love it's not a job, but I guess it's an occupation. It's fun. It's what I've always wanted to do my entire life. I'm realizing a dream and it comes naturally. There's nothing fake about it. My first year, I don't know if I've told you this before, Colton, but my first year of the Pirates, I have bunch. I said a bunch of family members. One of my brothers, an attorney in Pittsburgh. Not too long after I started the Pirates, I don't know how many games. We were talking on the phone. We were talking about some of his buddies who found out that I was his brother, and hey, talk to some guys about you and your style broadcasting. And do you want to hear some criticism? I said, sure. And to this day, I want to hear it. I funnel in anything, and I respect and I appreciate it. The critiques. I want it. I want to do better. I want to be good. I want to be really good at it. And I continue to learn. He said two things, Colton. One thing he said was, they don't particularly like the fact that you call Bob Walkie on the air. Now, Bob Walk and I had a history because I was in the front office while he was a pitcher. I didn't know him well, but I certainly knew him. I knew all the players when I was in the front office. And less than a year into our he started when I started as an announcer. We were friends. Um, but I thought about that. Oh, and he said, by the way, the other thing he said was, you get too excited over the Pirates. But anyhow, so and I hung up the phone. And I thought about those two criticisms, and I thought about this thing about Bob Walk, and I put myself in the listener's frame of mind. I thought, wait a minute, why should I assume that anyone knows that I have a history with Bob Walk? Who is this kid from Buffalo, New York, who did Bills games? Where does he get off calling Bob Walk our guy, our pitcher? He's our guy, our Pirate. We know him as Walkie. But who's that guy to sound so familiar with him? I thought, you know what? That's a good one. And I never to this day call him Walkie on the air. I call him Bob. Off the air, I say Walkie, not on the air. But then I thought about the second criticism about getting too excited. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got because my good friend, the late great Mike Lang, my mentor, my Yoda, if you listen to a hockey game early in the season, preseason, if Mario Lemieux scored a goal, you would know it was a preseason game. You'd have thought it was a playoff game. At the time, Myron Cope was living, and he was the color analyst of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he was known as the voice of the Steelers. And it could be a preseason game one of the preseason. And if somebody, Louis Lips, scored a touchdown to make it, you know, the LA Rams, then the LA Rams 21, the Steelers 7 in the second quarter. Yeah, great catch by Louis Lips. It's unbelievable. I can't believe how good. Yeah. The Steelers are going. I mean, I thought, wait a minute, it's okay for him to go crazy, for Lang to go crazy, but a guy comes to Pittsburgh and he gets excited about the Pirates, and you don't like that? The heck with you. I'll do this. I'll do it forever. I'll be passionate about the team forever. You won't stymie that from me, because that would be unfair, and it would be phony because I'm not phony. And that's one thing Mike Lang told me. Don't be a phony. Don't be someone you're not, because they will know that instantaneously, especially in Pittsburgh. They know a fraud. They know a phony. Don't be a phony. So I take it to heart, and I won't apologize for being passionate and enthusiastic about our baseball team.
Yeah, and going to your relationship with Mike, Greg, what impact did Mike have on your career?
Well, aside from giving me my first break, he taught me you get a piece of everybody that you work with. I mean, all of them. Pete Weber. I learned from Pete Weber. I learned from Van Miller, the great voice of the Buffalo Bills. Lanny. I learned so much from Lanny. I learned from other broadcasters listening to them. The other color analysts I've learned from. And from Mike, I learned a lot of stuff about how to handle yourself off the air as well as on the air. He would almost to the day he passed would text me, not all the time, but enough to remind me to smile. He would just text smile, and that not just when you're on camera, but people can tell when you're not smiling on the radio or doing play-by-play on TV, and you're not even on camera. They can tell. So smile. He taught me about voice inflection, and I fight it to this day. I was critiquing someone's work. A gentleman who's going to school at Syracuse wants to be a play-by-play guy, and he sent me some stuff. And I thought about Mike, because I said one thing is, and I'm no expert, but this would what Mike told me, and I still fight it, is to vary your cadence. Don't always there's a fly ball to left field and it's gone, and that's a 2-1 game. And on the upbeat, he said, you can bring it down once in a while. Bring it down. A goal scored, he would sometimes, love you, makes it 3-2. Not just 3-2 Penguins. But again, he was a student. He was a master. of how he used his voice inflection, and but a thousand things. I mean, uh, Mike taught me. I was with Mike on many occasions at bars when people would come up to and offer him suggestions for calls. One of my buddies, um, Mark Norelli, and I were out at a bar when this is again before I was even doing pre and post game with Mike and Steve. I had known Mike, and we were out at I don't know where it was. But, Mike loved those. He loved the blues, and he would just like to sit by himself, especially after games. I would learn this later in life, like to quit talking to Mike, quit asking him questions, just let him go. He would love to sit at a bar with his back to the chaos and smoke and listen to music and have a drink quietly as best as he could. And again, mayhem ensued all around him. And a buddy and I that Mike knew from the Pirate front office, Mark Norelli and I were standing off to the side one night at this bar, and Mike leaning over, the counter. He's got the smoke going, and he's got a drink. He's nursing the drink, and he's listening to some music, and people are talking all over the place. And my buddy's telling this story to me, and he called me Brown, and he said, Brown, I swear, this guy didn't know whether to, and he cussed, or wind his watch. And Mike spun around and said, what'd you say? He goes, what? What'd you say, Norelli? He goes, the guy didn't know whether to blank or wind his watch. Why? He goes, I like it. And he spun back and he goes, excuse me, Missy, do you have a napkin? He hands him a napkin and a pen. And now we're going like, wait a minute. Are you going to use this as a call? I might. Whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean? What are you going to do? And you see, writing stuff down. He stuffs it in his pocket. Oh my gosh. Oh my, like we're going crazy. You're going to use this as a call? So now we go to hockey games. This is before the internet and everything else. So we go to a game. We run back to the car and we turn on the radio and we listen to post game highlights. And Mike Lang said, Yager made it a 4-2 game. Yager down the right wing circle. He shoots and scores and scratch my back with a hacksaw. And he'd do the call. Oh, he's still not using it, not using it, not using it. And eventually Norelli said, you got to call Lang. He's got to use that call. So I called Mike. I said, Mike, Norelli's really upset because we keep listening for you and you're not using the call. And he said, will you tell him to be patient? And he said, first, and by the way, I'm going to have to clean it up. I can't use that cuss word. I said, okay, I'll tell him. I said, Norelli, he said, be patient. One night, go to a game, run back down, dead of winter, run down to our cars, get in the car, turn on it's freezing cold, turn on the post-game show. Mike's doing the show. And in the third period, Mario Lemieux gave the Penguins a 3-2 lead against the Flyers. And here comes Yager down the right wing circle, shoots, passes off to Lemieux. He shoots and scores. And Hextall didn't know whether to cry or wind his watch. And we were stars. We're screaming, we're high-fiving. That was our call. Well, actually, it was Norelli's call, not even mine. But so Mike taught me that you can have fun, you can use other people, and I do. Other people make suggestions. I don't do as many crazy calls as Mike, but I will take suggestions. I did it more before I did the clear the deck cannonball coming. I would use different things, but now that's kind of my call. But sometimes if a certain player comes around, I might do something different. And I did Connor Joe. Mike loved, he loved the Beatles, but he loved, oh gosh, darn. I don't know if the Beatles were his favorite group or not. Maybe it was. But anyway, one of the songs Paul McCartney does, Look Out Loretta. There's a line in Look Out, that's from a song that Paul McCartney did. It says, get back, JoJo. And so when Connor Joe hit a home run, I'd say something like, get back, JoJo, kind of an ode to Mike and the Beatles. So stuff like that. It's fun.
And with all of your notable calls, Greg, with obviously Cannonball coming and raise the Jolly Roger, did that stem with an inspiration to try to like carry on Mike's legacy in a way, knowing he had his signature calls and you have yours?
I can't say that for sure that was because of Mike. It was more. I mean, the end of game call was at the behest of Bob Walk. He said you got to have a end of game call. Everybody else has one. You don't have one, and I fought him back and forth, and he kind of suggested, like, I told him that I had an idea years ago about Three River Stadium. When the Pirates won a game, I suggested to the vice president that we put a big jolly skull and crossbones up, pirate flag up on the top of Three River Stadium. And Bob said, well, pirates do that when they capture a ship. They put up that's called the Jolly Roger. And he goes, why don't you say hoist the Jolly Roger? I said, it's not bad. It's a little too formal. So tweaked it to raise the Jolly Roger. I guess what the one thing Mike did, not inspire me to do it, but to knowing that I could do it without taking myself too seriously, having fun with those calls. I think that's probably it more than anything else.
Oh, okay. And then moving on, still with your time with the Pirates, this was a question I thought of when I was driving home on my way home from work. So obviously broadcasting baseball, every play-by-play announcer who has broadcast a baseball game knows you got to have a scoreboard or a scorecard, I should say, in front of you. Do you have any, Greg, that you maybe have like in a plaque or just keep with maybe some of your notable Pirate games that you've called in your career?
Well, I've got every single score book somewhere around here. I've got somewhere. I got all this stuff everywhere. Do I have this one? No, okay, here. I keep every one of them. So I've got, years and years and years of, and I tweak them all the time too, Colton.
I love that.
This was this year, it's 2024, but yeah, every year I tweak them. I go to Kinko's FedEx, and they laugh when I walk in there because here we go again. Yeah, I've got years and years and years and years of score books that I've tweaked and used. This is one from 1999.
How about that?
How about that? 1999. Let's see how different it looks compared to the other ones. This was smaller. Now they've gone bigger and again tweaking them. But so this one, the Pirates are playing the Cardinals, and Jason Schmidt pitches 7 innings of 5 hit ball, 2 unearned runs. Yeah, not a ton of information on that one, but yeah. So I keep them all. They're like a score book or a scorecard for a baseball announcer is like it's like your Bible. It's you have to have it. It's your go-to. A lot of people, you go online now, but no, I'm not going to do that. I need to write stuff down. I've got a terrible memory, so I need to really write everything down. A lot of times I don't use the stuff that I write down, but it's there in case.
And that actually leads me into my next question, Greg. So, how was that like preparing for games during the off season, and how was it like preparing for games in the season, knowing that you pretty much had a game a night from March, April, all the way till September?
Yeah, you try and do most of your work in the off season. At least I do. And if I go, I try to read as much stuff. I try and, I've tried to go to OneNote. I've used that. Joe Block actually showed me that, suggested it. I used to keep everything in notebooks, and I've kept a lot of these old notebooks. I used to handwrite. I used to literally take stories, Colton, from magazines and paste them into these notebooks, along with the notes that I would write. I don't know if you can see, what is this?
Going Gonzo is what it's
Two Men, Two Leagues. The Triple Crown winners hasn't happened since 1993. So again, this is in 2001, and I don't know how close you can see to that.
See, 2 men, 2 leagues, two Triple Crown winners. Hasn't happened since 1933. Chuck Klein, NL, and Jimmy Fox, AL, have never been by guys sharing. Have never been by guys sharing a last name. This year, Juan and
Ah,
Luis Gonzalez could do it.
how about that? So that's a cute little nugget there. You know, you just don't get that by dialing something up or on the internet. But yeah, all kinds of stuff, man. Just wild, wacky stuff, man. Crazy.
And what's usually in front of you, Greg, during a broadcast?
I have my scorebook, of course. I have my uh, Android. I had to go to an iPhone, which I'm not liking at all. I was Android forever. Now I'm just getting used to the last few weeks of the Android. Look what's on my home screen. Can you see that?
Oh yes, oh God,
Next year's schedule.
already got it ready.
Because then you can just go because so many dates are coming up. People are asking you stuff, and you go, no, can't do it at home. Yeah, okay. Good. Um, and I've got my laptop, which includes is very important, especially on radio, because that has the live uh, promo reads that we have to do each night, and that's on my laptop. And I have at least two iPads, actually probably two iPads, my phone and laptop and scorebook.
How? What do you?
An egg timer if I'm on radio, egg timer, and a little digital clock on radio that lets me know when we have to take station IDs at the top and the bottom of the hour.
What's usually on your laptop, Greg, during a broadcast? Because with me, I usually have a million links open on mine when
Yeah,
I do broadcast.
I've got a one-track mind, and so I it's very difficult for me to do more than one thing at one time. If I'm on TV, probably have the Slack channel where we our AT&T Sportsnet. Geez, oh man, Sportsnet Pittsburgh. My apologies, Sportsnet Pittsburgh. We changed names. Uh, they employ a statistician and about five or six folks who do the stats for us are located in New York, Seattle. One guy a night. They switch off, but we are in touch with them, so we can ask, questions if all of a sudden we have four straight walks to start the ball game. Last time, four straight walks to start a game, and then they can quickly look it up and let us know. So we cheat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Greg, so in the summer of 2011, I remember watching, I can't remember if you were on TV or on radio at the time. So in the summer of 2011, you guys were in Houston. I was watching your broadcasts with my grandfather, and then somebody named Starling Marte comes up to the plate and hits a home run on his very first pitch. And I remember watching that game with my grandfather and, saying and, mentioning towards the end of the broadcast how like he was like the first Pirates player to hit a home run on his first pitch since the 50s. And it's like, oh, that's really cool information. Let's see, fifth grade. I had to be like 12 years old at the time. But now as a 26-year-old and as a broadcaster thinking, I was like, okay, well, now I know that I'm sure there was a statistician who had to look that up like sometime during the game and then finally confirming it and make sure it's on the air correctly.
Well, yeah, that time we didn't have a statistician. Our PR guys who were traveling with us probably told us that. And I use our media guides, although more and more, Colton, those are being phased out. I like leafing through the media guide. I don't like having to scroll because time is of the essence, and especially with a pitch clock. So I need to quickly rifle through a media guide, and knowing media guides as I do, know where to go category wise. The last time this happened, and so you could do that back in the day. That's how oftentimes you would get information, and so it could have been back then in 2011. I was on TV that night. Either I looked up last time it happened, where it would say home run on first pitch, major league start, or perhaps that information came to us via the on-site PR guy. Good chance that happened also. And a lot of times they give you announcements during games, public address from the press box that was the first time since blah 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 blah. My pet peeve with that is that these ballparks don't make sense. The speakers in the back. You're at the front where all the crowd is, and you have a headset on. You can't hear the speaker in the back. What they should do, and there are a couple, I don't know now who does this, but they used to. A couple ballparks had actually a separate speaker, standalone small speaker right in front of you, like looking at you, so that you could hear these press box announcements.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is phenomenal, Greg. And then, knowing now you obviously have your broadcast partners and then also your fellow play by play announcer with Mr. Joe Block. So, do you and Joe work together before games to get ready for them? And, how do you work together in general as the two play by play announcers for the team?
Well, one time they did that, and it was an absolute treat. And actually, the end of spring training, we'll try, and they're usually it's a radio only game, the last spring training game, um, and we usually have two color analysts, one or two with us in the booth. We just say, you know what, let's all work together. We do a chaos 4-person booth, and I get to work with Joe. There was one game where they decided several years ago to have 3 color analysts do the game on TV in spring training. No play-by-play guy. So Joe and I worked play-by-play on the radio, and we had an absolute blast. I think Joe's one of the funniest humans I've ever met. Joe is so clever. He's so smart. He's got my sense of humor. It's very dry. Um, and so it was an absolute, we were impersonating like 19, 20 announcers. Uh, we were just, I don't know, it was sacrilegious, but I know some people probably didn't like it because it wasn't very serious, but it was a lot of fun. So, but leading up to a game, we really don't do much. Joe does a ton of prep, um, especially when he's doing a TV game. He will look up all kinds of stuff on Baseball Reference. He's a whiz with a computer, and he'll get all kinds of notes and send it to all of us. And yeah, but I don't have that in me. I just can't. Yeah, if we know something, if one of us does the manager show before every game, we don't both do it. And so if Donnie Kelly says something of interest, say, hey, by the way, or after we stop recording, hey, just so you know, Donnie said that this pitcher is not going to go more than 80 pitches tonight, or so and so is probably hurt and not going to play this weekend.
Yeah, then a little preview into next season, Greg, and it has our ties with Point Park, of course, with Don Kelly, also a Point Park alumnus as well. So, hey, how does it feel, it's just for you knowing that he's a Point Park alum? It just seems like Point Park really has taken over the Pirates. You got Dan Hart as well, the media relations guy, also a Point Park alum. So how does it feel for you, as a Point Park alumnus yourself? It seems that, our university has really taken over the club.
Well, yeah, I love it. I mean, and Danny's the one that probably started it even before I did. He in terms of trying to bring people in, I've encouraged him. He's the guy that makes the decisions in terms of interns, and so naturally he leans toward Point Park. They've got the in with him, but he's not. He's not excluding other colleges, but it seems like Point Park has had a leg up over the years. And you're right with Danny and some others. And we're trying to do, a kind of a broadcast seminar camp. We started up last year. We're trying to build on that. The Point Park, how it has invested in its curriculum, in its well, I mean, the media center is second to none. So they're pouring a lot of money, time, and effort into improving and encouraging the broadcast journalism end of that curriculum. So yeah, I love it. I love the fact that he's with sometimes who's somebody else, somebody from the media maybe. Anyway, occasionally I'll walk out and Donnie will say, "Go Pioneers," and I'll go Pioneers. I will walk out of his office, especially if we have a Point Park night. So yeah, it's great. It's great stuff.
And how was that like for you, Greg, to get to know players? What are the things that you like to do to try to get to know players and coaches when they go through the Pirate system throughout the season?
Well, I'll try to, new guys that come up. I'll try to touch base with them. It's not easy to get a guy, first of all, alone. They're different, especially when you're doing interviews. It's way different to in fact, I won't do it anymore. I won't interview a guy at his locker with other players around. I'll say, can we go outside here? Because they're different people. They're just they're looser when they're not with other guys. They're not so concerned about what they're going to say. And I think they're more upfront. So but it's tough because there's so many places for these guys to go now. You've got not just a trainer's room, but you have a big like cafeteria. You've got a game room. You've got a place where they can go veg out. I don't know, they call it the green room, um, meditation rooms, massage rooms. And so it's rare that you have, I want to talk to this guy about something, and you go into the clubhouse, you walk in. Rarely is he sitting there. Most of you know where so and so is? He's in the training, he's in the weight room, he's in the batting cage. Sometimes you go to a guy and say, hey, do you have a few minutes up? I gotta take early BP. Can we do it afterward? So uh, it's not as easy. I was on I think talking to a class today, or maybe it was a podcast yesterday, or somebody doing college level sports. I said, yeah, I'm almost envious because these players want to talk to you. They want to. They want to tell their story, and it's just like an open book, and you can find out anything. And you're curious, and you want to know. Whereas these guys are much more reserved now. Not that they're bad. It's just that it's more difficult, but you try to as best you can, and their time is of the essence. And now with not just the beat writers, but now you have podcasters involved, and people on the internet, uh, it's like so many people want to find out the stories. It's like by the time they get to the big leagues, the story's been told, and the internet has helped tell that story, and that's a great, almost a crutch, but it's a great resource that you can go online and find out just about anything. But so you try to find out something that isn't already out there. That's not easy, but yeah, just try to be a human being too.
How was that like, Greg, when Paul Skeens came into the club? Just like you said, with all that buzz around him, pretty much everybody knew who he was, coming off a College World Series victory with LSU. So how was that like when Skeens came into the club?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was the one opportunity I felt like to talk to him. I did an interview with him. That might have been the only interview, like when he first joined the team, and talked to him a little bit. But I intentionally, that's one thing Mike Lang has also had taught me over the years, is that um, I think the players maybe respect and appreciate you more if you're not always there at them. Um, I appreciate, because heck, people pull at me a lot during the year. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Paul Skeens. And so because of that, I intentionally do not bother him. Um, I won't do it unless it's absolutely necessary. I don't know when the last time I did an interview with him. Might have been, like I said, that first game. Um, yeah, I think it was. I was in Chicago. He had pitched his first game in Pittsburgh, his debut, and then shortly after, the very next starter, two starts later, he's actually at Wrigley Field, and I got him and his battery mate Grant Cook, Koch. Uh, he was gonna pitch the next day, and I got them both in the dugout to talk, not on a recorded interview, just talk about stuff. But then, as time goes on, you can just see it. You just see the members of the media that want a minute or two with them. And so I'll say hi to them. And occasionally I'll ask him a question if I'm in passing, and it's not going to take up any time. just real quick. Hey, this blah blah blah. Okay, so yeah,
And with your analyst, Greg, how has that been like for you, the generate, especially, well, obviously everyone knows, your work with Bob Walk and Steve Blass. So how has that been like generating new chemistry with a lot of new talent, like Neil Walker, Matt Capps, Michael McHenry, and also on the sidelines, this season with Hannah Mears?
it's great. It's a great challenge. We are unlike most teams. Most teams have a radio team and a television team, play-by-play color analyst. We are one of the very few, I don't know how many do it now, that mix both. And I think that keeps it fresh. It's the challenge of bringing in the new analysts, as you talk about. I think I know Bob and John and the pacing. You kind of get a feel for. You don't have to look at a guy; you just know it, and they know it with me and Joe, I'm sure. Whereas with the other guys, we're still on occasion might step on each other, but that'll come. And the thing about it is that we all are friends. I feel like I go to the game every night. It doesn't matter who's in that booth with me. It's a buddy. Um, I've been with some longer, but oh my gosh, Kevin Young, I knew like John Wayner when he was playing in Buffalo in the minor leagues, and I was announcing in the minor leagues. I knew Kevin Young then. I knew John Wayner then. Became friends. Matt Capps was one of my favorite players because he was such a delight when he pitched, and I felt like I was close to him then. Michael McHenry, same thing. You talk about going to guys when he was playing. You could always go to Michael with stuff would be interesting, a backup catcher, and he'd always have something thoughtful to say. Neil Walker was, heck, followed Neil's career as a Pittsburgher and knew Neil and his parents, and so in terms of like chemistry, I think that comes naturally, and you find out what kind of things they like to talk about, what they're intrigued about, and you try and lead them that way. At least I do, and steer them toward the stuff that they enjoy talking about and that they're good at. But yeah, everybody's different, and it's just a ton of fun to go to the ballpark with your buddies.
Indeed, Greg. Yeah, and just going over your career for this little while, and it's just been so much fun. Have there been any sports that you have wanted to do play by play for but haven't had the chance yet?
Well, I didn't do play-by-play for football. I did some for college basketball. I guess probably, I would like to have done that maybe. I think I'd have been a good football guy. Um, it's a different challenge. Like I said, I did some basketball. I was offered a Columbus Blue Jackets job uh, when one of their first years. Someone had gotten sick, one of their announcers, and was out for a while. And I just happened to know the team controller who had started the Columbus. He's a buddy of mine to this day. And he called me from Columbus almost in desperation. The season had already started, but he needed someone to fill in for what could be weeks and asked me if I would do it. And I don't know if I regret turning it down, but our son had just been born, and it was the winter time, and I was a chance to spend time with him, and we were already using kind of a nanny to do a lot of stuff, and my mother-in-law, and I thought, geez, oh man, it, it I would not want to, I wouldn't want to do it half baked. I would want to be all in and to do the good job, and so I felt like I wouldn't want to be driving back and forth. I would like invest. I would have almost moved to Columbus for the winter and embed myself with the team. I talked to Mike about it, Lang. I said, geez, I've done all the other sports. I did a couple college hockey games, um, color work, but I said, he goes, you can do it. Yeah, anybody can do it. You can do it. Just kind of like, he nonchalant about it. But yeah, I did not do that. And I don't know how good I'd have been at hockey. That's a tough sport to call. That's a grind, and so yeah, that's probably it. I no real regrets. If I had my, if somebody said to you, well, heck, ask the 10-year-old Greg Brown, 12-year-old Greg Brown, what's your lifetime dream? It would be to be a play-by-play announcer for a Major League Baseball team, and could it be the Pirates, please? So
Oh, yeah, that's all amazing, Greg. And,
Yeah.
for me, I've always thought about this would be fun. Obviously, since you share a broadcasting network with the Penguins, have there been any talks of that? Well, I mean, I think it would be tough to do it because it would have to be during April Fools, which is, of course, right when your season starts, or right when the Penguins start. Has there been any talks about maybe like switching up where you go do a Penguins game, now like Josh Getzoff does a Pirates game? Then I don't know. It's just that's something I have always personally in my fandom have wanted to see.
No, no one suggested that yet. But that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I don't know Josh terribly well, but I imagine he'd get a kick out of that. And like you said, tough to do with crossover. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Nobody's suggested that, but might be get a kick out of it. I will say that over the years we've had, I remember we had Bill Hillgrove come in once to do an inning of play-by-play. I knew Bill, and he was at the game one night. He was still doing, I think, Channel 4 anchoring along with Steelers, uh, and certainly doing Pitt uh, football and basketball. And I saw him in the press box. I said, "You want to come? Yeah, I'll visit the booth." I don't think he expected it, but he and I and Steve Blasser talking during the game, headset on. I said, let's Bill Hillgrove take it the next couple innings. And I think he got a kick out of that. Mike Lang did crossover. Mike came over. Mike did a couple of years of cable. And then we brought him in as a guest. Doc Emmerich,
Yeah,
a friend of
I
mine.
love
Doc has
watching
done
those.
some spring training games, and Doc loves doing. He's so amazing. It's so fun to watch him in the locker room clubhouse before a game and going up. And of course, now he's got the you know, gravitas. He's got the players like gravitating to him, wanting to talk to him. Whereas if I walk in there, it's like oil and water. When Doc walks into the clubhouse, they all want to. They're anxious to talk to him, and so he gets nuggets, and he's such a great friend and mentor as well.
Yeah, how has that relationship been like with Greg Doc, knowing that, I know that he has that love for the Pirates, and it's been something that maybe people might not know. But how does that feel, with you? And I know he lives in Michigan. It seems like he always visits you when you guys go to Detroit. So how's that relationship been like with him?
Well, I mean, he is such a Pirate fan over the. He hasn't done the last couple of years, but he's hoping to do it this coming March, where he rents a place in Bradenton, and he actually got season tickets to these games. He buys two season tickets to spring training games, like 15 games, and he sits there over by the dugout, and it's an absolute treat. It's a treat to get to know him. It's wonderful to exchange texts or phone calls during the season. He's such a fan. He might want to know something, or he'll say he's so kind to me. He's just over the top about what he says about me. He's unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, I feel incredibly fortunate, incredibly blessed to have gotten the chance to know him, and it's because of his pirate fandom that I've gotten to know Doc. We've got when he was doing games for NBC, he'd see how he want to leave me tickets, and I'd bring a friend or something. And we'd go into the Captain Morgan Club where he and that's so another great guy, Eddie Olczyk, and between periods he'd come over. Like I don't know how he does it, but between periods you go to commercial break and he's got 5 minutes. He comes over and he's standing there talking to us like for 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, I can't do that. I can't I can't get in that mode. Like I don't know how in the world you're able to separate. It's no big deal. He gets right back at it. Second period starts. He's still great. Like he hasn't missed a beat. You'd never know it. But yeah, he's just an unbelievable human being. He's so nice. Walking around in Bradenton, if we're walking around the ball, we did an open once for a telecast. We wanted to do out in the right field, uh, up on the boardwalk at Lecom Park in Bradenton. And so we're walking from the press box down past the concession stands out to the boardwalk, and everyone's stopping. He's got time for everyone with a smile. Just such, they say nice guys finish last is a bunch of malarkey because He's one of the nicest humans that is, the pinnacle of the broadcasting industry.
Yeah, definitely. Tom McMillan brought Doc in when I was at Point Park in 2019, and
Oh man.
that's definitely a day that I will never forget.
Yeah.
And finally, one more question for you, Greg. So I'm a big Sinatra fan, and one of my favorite songs is My Way. And I just always love the quote saying, "To think I did all that, may I say not in a shy way. Oh no, not me. I did it my way." Have you ever looked back on your career, Greg, and just have that moment of saying, wow, to think I did all that in my life?
Yeah, and that's wild that you're a Sinatra fan. That's great, man. That's cool. Uh, I mean, I don't think about it as I did it my way. But I mean, because I think, uh, not to get too deep into this, Colton, but and I'm no saint by any stretch of the imagination. Please understand that, and I'm not preaching, but um, had it not been for my faith and prayer, there's just no way I'm here. It is impossible to think that a kid from this, you know, podunk town, Boondocks, Mechanicsburg, PA, um, that grows up loving the Pittsburgh Pirates, loving broadcasting. How in the world I got to this? The only way is because I prayed beyond what anybody could imagine. It was constant, and so I think it was my faith that got me here. And so when I think about this, I think about that. Um, And it's not, I remind myself, I never get caught up like people say, boy, man, you don't have much of an ego. No, because ego is bad. This is not me. I was, it's a gift. And I work at it. I work at what I believe I'm supposed to be doing. And I think it's a crime, sinful not to do what you're put on this earth to do and to do it at your best. So, uh, yeah, I don't. I feel blessed. I'm fortunate, and I will say this: that the only thing about my way is that my journey. I think I got here because of that and hard work and passion. So those things are awfully important, and staying on the straight and narrow. Um, yeah.
Yeah, Greg, going back to what you said about nice guys finishing last as a bunch of malarkey, that definitely is true. And, you have been that way with me. And I'm so honored that we were able to have you on. I'm so honored to have the chance to get to know you over these past few years. Thank you so much for coming on, Greg. This was an absolute blast.
Colton, you do it right, man. You do it right. I told you that before. I know you do this podcast and you do it with grace. You do it with such ease, and you do these interviews with great curiosity, natural curiosity, and that's led you to have the success you've had. So, congrats.